I don't think we give enough credit to how important emulation is. Without emulation, video game preservation would be a hell of a lot more harder. Unlike with film, video games are harder to preserve. It's way easier to access most movies and TV shows nowadays. I mean, it is easier, but it's not very convenient anymore. You compare that to video games where you're lucky if Nintendo even drip feeds you new games on NSO. Plus, there's the increase of remasters and remakes feeling like they should just outright replace the original when they really shouldn't. There is a lot of games that you can only really access if you have the original hardware, and guess what? Most companies don't sell that original hardware anymore. You gotta pay a lot of money to get these old consoles, and also some of the games are even more expensive than the console themselves. Plus, as much as I don't want to admit it, consoles do have a chance of breaking, and a lot of these consoles are getting really old, so there's a higher chance of them breaking. It's not like I can go into Best Buy and buy a brand new Super Nintendo. I am aware there was a time that you could, but guess what? You can't do that anymore. I also gotta bring it back to the fact that companies are now just drip feeding all of these classic games on their subscription services. Both PlayStation and Nintendo don't really have a lot of options when it comes to backwards compatibility on their systems like Microsoft does, so they instead put their classic games on their subscription services. My main problem with this is that because it's a subscription service, you don't really own the games, you're only given a limited time to play them. This is a far cry to previous generations where you could just outright buy some of these classic games for like $5 or something. So, in the modern day, your best option when it comes to playing classic video games is really emulation. Now, I definitely gotta specify this. Emulation isn't illegal. The only illegal thing that emulation could provide is a way to play your pirated games. But if you're a stickler for that, you can still play your legally owned games on emulators. There's a bunch of tutorials online showing how you can convert the game files from your cartridge or disc onto your PC, and that's totally legal. Plus, with these subscriptions, you don't really own the game, so really this shouldn't be a problem, but we live in a very backwards world, I guess. Now, there's obvious problems with emulation that I'd be remiss not to mention. You're gonna need a really good PC if you want to emulate later consoles like the PS3 and Xbox 360. Certain systems have baked-in gimmicks made for them, like the DS, 3DS, and Wii, so it's really hard to emulate those specific functions for certain games. And even though I'm gonna be singing the praises of emulation later in this video, I still prefer playing video games on their original intended hardware. These developers are artists in a way, and they make their art for their canvas, and their canvas is the system that they originally made it for, so it's really the best way to experience their art. But I understand not wanting to sell a kidney to try to get this original hardware, so emulation is the perfect solution for it. My favorite consoles to emulate are the 6th generation ones, because thanks to stuff like PCSX2 and Dolphin, it's become super easy to access a lot of these old games. Something I notice, especially when it comes to a lot of old video games, is that there might be legal issues when it comes to re-releasing them. I love Def Jam Fight for New York, but there is a legal nightmare to try to get the likenesses of all of these celebrities. There's also a chance that a game is just too obscure for the company to even care about re-releasing, like I highly doubt that I'm going to be getting a port of Gotcha Force anytime soon. There's also some old games that are region exclusive, so if it wasn't for talented ROM hackers translating them, we wouldn't be able to experience a lot of these games if you're on the West. That's another great thing about emulation, ROM hacking, people being able to mod a lot of these old games and change it into something entirely new. ROM hacks can even be as simple as being able to play a game that was made for a 4x3 display in a 16x9 one. Emulators themselves even give you a lot of options to tweak how you want your game to look like. This can especially help if you're a content creator. It's a pretty big pain in the ass to try to record videos on original hardware, so just booting up an emulator and loading up these games so you can just record with OBS is a lifesaver. Maybe you're playing a JRPG that you've already beaten and you want to skip through the story. Well, you can use the speed up feature that's included with most emulators. You want to play some old video games with your friends online? Then you can use the netplay feature that's included with certain emulators. If an emulator doesn't have netplay included, try using a software like Parsec, which allows you to stream your computer to your friend's PC. You'll probably have a less laggy experience than playing on Nintendo Switch Online. I mentioned computers a lot, but hell, other systems can even emulate. The Steam Deck is probably my favorite example of this. Thanks to software such as EmuDeck, it's super easy to play your classic games on the go with the Steam Steam Deck. And even though it's not out yet at the time of me recording this video, I'm sure the Steam machine will also be able to emulate games as well. I almost forgot to mention the fact that there's a lot of games that have uncapped frame rates on emulators. Some of these games actually benefit more for being on emulators than on original hardware. There's also a ton of decompilations and recomps that allow you to play these games natively on your PC without the need for an emulator. And these projects probably wouldn't have went far if it wasn't for emulation on PC. I've done a lot of talking about this, but I'm not the only one who shares these opinions about emulation. There are whole communities out there that can help you with this stuff if you're trying to get into it. Some channels that helped me when it came to my emulation journey are channels such as Your Casual Gamer, Mr. Sugiano, and Modern Vintage Gamer. I also highly recommend Pariah695's video on emulation. It's a really good watch. So you've heard me babble about emulation for God knows how many minutes. So let's get a fresh perspective from my good friend Valleygal and her thoughts on emulation.
So what do I have to say about emulation, huh? Well, I think it's best for me personally to talk about my experiences with DS and 3DS emulation. Now, growing up, I never had a 3DS, at least never had one of my own. I remember my older sister having a DS and she had a copy of Tony Hawk's Proving Grounds that I never got to play, but I really wanted to. I still have never forgiven her. Anyways, when it comes to 3DS emulation, I mostly play the well-known, such as Tamagotchi Life Collection, Nintendogs, and Mario Kart. Just kidding, I'm talking about Pony Kart, the ROM hack for Mario Kart. Created lovingly by modder Peachy Pie, this ROM hack is one of my favorites when it comes to ROM hacks. And yes, I am biased. Seeing all these different tracks be My Little Pony themed and all the characters be characters from the show is amazing. It kinda really feels like if Hasbro made an official My Little Pony kart racer from the era. Also, the track based on Pinkie Pie's home street is called Sugar Cube Valley. That's me! And Pinkie Pie is my favorite, if you couldn't tell. But I won't talk about a ROM hack the entire time, but it should be said that ROM hacks are a big part of what makes emulation so cool. Being able to take games you've already played before and play them in new and interesting ways. Also, some good developers started off making ROM hacks, like Toby Fox, who was well known for an Earthbound Halloween ROM hack, which is the origin of the song Megalovania, which is crazy. Anyways, the thing I love the most about emulation is the opportunity it brings to play games you've never played before. Like, I can now play Tony Hawk's Proving Grounds like I've always wanted to. Or I could just play a better Tony Hawk game on another emulator. But I digress. Having emulation available to play 3DS and DS games is awesome. I now have fond memories of playing these games when I never would have been able to have those memories before. Also, it's DS and 3DS emulation that have carried a lot of the Pokemon community, being used by all sorts of popular creators for streams and videos. Almost all Pokemon games in existence are available to emulate easily, and although I was not a Pokemon kid growing up, I can see how valuable that is. And I can play them now anyway, so who's to say I can't become a Pokemon-pilled Pokehead? Those probably aren't real terms. Most of the most well-regarded Pokemon games are on these generations of hardware, and so if you're a creator who doesn't want to deal with the hassle of recording a handheld, emulation is your friend. Also, because you can emulate on portable devices such as a Steam Deck or even just your phone, you can take these games on the go like they were meant to be. Although the whole dual screen thing is something you're just gonna have to live with losing. But hey, who's to say that emulation can't be your gateway into buying the real thing someday? It allows that barrier of entry for these games to decrease and gives a whole realm of possibilities for you to play. But yes, that's been my time here. But before I go, I've been super excited to talk about the new chapter of Fortnite.
Alright, I think that's enough talking from our special guest. Let's wrap this shit up. In conclusion, I think that emulation is super important for video games as a medium. If you somehow still don't believe me, just think about the games that you're playing on NSO and PlayStation Plus. These companies are using their own emulators in order to get these running on their concurrent hardware. A lot of companies use emulators when it comes to their modern day re-releases, so they're extremely important for that. So yeah, checkmate atheist, I got you there. Before you leave, make sure you subscribe to my friend Val's channel, link in the description below. And one more thing, I definitely do not support piracy whatsoever. Yup, I'm definitely not getting sued now. Okay, thanks, bye.
the site.
Oh, cool. Can you download the Foo Fighters?
Yeah. Hold on. What did I do?
You know it's illegal, download copyrighted music. I'm taking you in.
Pay for music, never legally download.